I don't really know how to begin this without sounding crazy or dramatic, or like one of those people who desperately wants attention. But everything I'm about to tell you really happened, and it changed everything I ever believed about life, death, and what might be waiting in between. I've never been into ghosts or any of that paranormal stuff, never watched ghost shows, never believed in haunted houses or demons or spirits trapped between worlds. I thought people who messed with Ouija boards were just feeding into superstition or trying to spook themselves for fun. But I guess curiosity is a dangerous thing when you don't know what you're inviting in. It started about 2 years ago on a weekend night in October, right before Halloween. I was with 3 friends, Marcus, who had this goofy charm but always chased weird stuff like ghost hunts. Emily, the type who got bored with everything unless it involved risk or rebellion. And Jonah, the quiet one who always went along with whatever just to be part of the group. We had no plans that night, so we met at Emily's grandmother's old house. She had passed away a year earlier, and the house had been sitting untouched ever since. It was this creaky 2-story home just outside of town, kind of secluded, with overgrown grass and peeling white paint that gave it that perfect haunted vibe, though I always thought it just looked neglected. Emily brought up the idea of using a Ouija board almost casually, like she was asking if we wanted to watch a movie. And to be honest, I laughed when she pulled it out. It looked cheap, like something you'd get at a toy store, with the classic letters and numbers printed in gold and a planchette that rattled when you shook it. I almost didn't take it seriously, but there was something about the way she looked at me, like she wanted to see if I'd back out. I didn't. We lit candles and sat on the floor in the living room, the only light flickering from those tiny flames. I remember how cold it felt, even with all of us sitting close. It started as you'd expect, joking, giggling, pretending to be scared. Marcus asked if there were any spirits who wanted to talk to us, and when nothing happened at first, he exaggerated a gasp and moved the planchette on his own. We all called him out, laughing, and for a few minutes it just felt like a stupid game. But then it moved again, slower this time, and no one was laughing. I remember the sound of Emily's breath catching in her throat, the sudden silence that followed. The planchette began sliding from letter to letter. Hello. We all looked at each other, trying to figure out who was screwing with us, but nobody confessed. And something in the air shifted. It felt heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. Marcus asked who we were speaking with. It replied slowly, Malachi. None of us knew that name. I assumed it was made up, maybe a ghost character from a horror movie. But when I said that out loud, the planchette jerked sharply toward the word nitrogen monoxide on the board. I could feel my hands sweating, but none of us took our fingers off. I asked where it was from, and it replied, beneath. That word chilled me. Not hell, not the grave, not the past, just beneath. Emily asked what it wanted, and it spelled, to stay. That's when I started to feel real fear, not just adrenaline or excitement, but the kind that makes your stomach twist and your skin feel wrong. Jonah whispered that we should say goodbye and close the session, but as we moved to do so, the board went crazy, spelling random letters quickly, the planchette twitching violently. One of the candles blew out on its own, and I swear to God, the temperature dropped by 10 degrees in an instant. Emily's hands were shaking. Marcus looked pale, like he'd just seen something he couldn't explain. Finally, the planchette stopped moving. We said goodbye out loud, as you're supposed to, and pulled our fingers off, except I hesitated. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me still didn't believe it. But the second I let go, I felt a deep pressure in my chest, like something unseen had leaned in close, breathing against my skin. We packed up everything quickly and got the hell out of that house, laughing nervously as we drove off, trying to shake the unease by making fun of it. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the name Malachi and the way it spelled out to stay, like it had no intention of leaving. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest again, like the sensation of being watched, but there was no one around. I looked up the name online out of curiosity, expecting nothing, but what I found unsettled me. There were scattered mentions across different forums and posts people who claimed they had contacted an entity with the same name through a board. Most said they felt their lives got worse afterward. One said she kept seeing shadows in mirrors. Another said her dreams were hijacked by something that whispered to her every night. The most disturbing one claimed that Malachi wasn't a ghost. It was something older, something pre-Christian, a spirit of deception and attachment that fed on attention and invitation. I clicked off, heart racing, and tried to rationalize everything as coincidence or suggestion. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd opened something that night, something that didn't want to leave. I figured maybe I was just paranoid, still wound up from the experience. But then weird things started happening, subtle at first. I'd hear whispers in the hallway when I was alone. Lights would flicker even though no other electronics had issues. My dog started refusing to come into my room, just staring into the doorway with its hackles raised. One night, I woke up at 3:03 a.m. exactly, and my closet door was open. I never leave it open. I got up to close it and noticed, written faintly in the condensation on my mirror, the name, Malachi. No one else had been in my room. No one else could have written it. I wiped it off with a towel, told myself it was some kind of sleepwalking thing or a prank by Marcus, but I didn't believe it. It was just too specific. I called Emily and asked if anything strange had happened to her. She was quiet for a second, then said, "I thought I was going crazy." She'd been hearing tapping at her windows every night at the same time, even though she lived on the second floor. Jonah, on the other hand, was harder to reach. When I finally got through to him, he said he hadn't been sleeping and had been staying with his cousin because he felt like something was in the house. I asked if he'd seen or heard the name again, and he got quiet, then said, "It's not just a name. It's a voice now." I didn't know what that meant then, but I would soon find out for myself. At the time, I was still trying to hold on to some sense of logic, that maybe we'd just scared ourselves so badly that we started seeing patterns where there were none, feeding into each other's fear. But something inside me knew better. You don't hallucinate the same name in your dreams that your friend hears whispering to him across the house. You don't all wake up at the same exact time to find something staring at you from the corner, invisible but undeniably present. That night in the house, it didn't feel like we were playing a game. It felt like we were inviting something in. And the worst part? We never asked it if it wanted to leave. We never made sure the door was closed. After that night, nothing felt the same again. And I don't just mean in the creepy, something is watching you kind of way. It felt like something had shifted, like a door inside my reality had been opened, and I couldn't close it anymore, no matter how hard I tried. At first, I kept telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks, that we'd freaked ourselves out, and now we were just seeing what we expected to see, hearing what we feared was there. But fear doesn't write names on your fogged-up mirror. Fear doesn't whisper your name in your own voice. That first week after the Ouija session, I tried to go about life normally: school, work, errands, but there was always this heaviness in the air, like walking with a wet blanket over my shoulders that I couldn't shake off. I started having dreams, too, not like the normal ones where you forget everything the moment you wake up, but these dark, vivid dreams that stayed with me all day. In every one of them, I was in the same place. A long, narrow hallway with walls made of rotting wood and flickering overhead lights, the kind you see in old motels. I was barefoot, always cold, and at the far end of the hallway, there was a door that would never open, no matter how hard I tried. Every time I reached for the knob, I'd wake up in a sweat, heart pounding, as if I'd been running. And in the quiet moments after waking, when I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, I'd hear the softest whisper of that name, Malachi, right before everything went silent again. The worst part was it started bleeding into my waking life in small, unsettling ways. I remember typing a text to my mom, and my phone autocorrected Make to Malachi. I blinked, thinking it was a glitch, but then it happened again the next day, this time while I was writing a school essay. The letters just showed up on the screen. Malachi. I deleted them quickly, but my hands were shaking. I knew I hadn't typed it. I started seeing the name everywhere in graffiti, under a bridge I walked past, in a book's dedication at the library, even faintly etched into the condensation on a window at a coffee shop. Every time I saw it, I felt this tightness in my chest, like being gripped by something invisible. It was like the name was following me, showing up just enough to let me know I wasn't alone. I tried talking to Marcus and Emily again. Marcus laughed it off and said we were just letting it get to us, but he looked tired, like he hadn't slept much either. Emily, on the other hand, admitted something weird had been happening to her too. Her bedroom door would open on its own at night, and her dog had started growling at empty corners. She told me, "I keep hearing someone say my name when I'm brushing my teeth, but when I check, no one's there." Jonah had stopped answering calls completely, and when I drove by his place one night just to check on him, his car was gone, his house completely dark, like no one had been home in days. That's when I started digging. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, maybe answers, maybe reassurance that this wasn't all in our heads, but I remembered the name Malachi and started searching online, this time deeper than before. I found obscure forums and old message boards where people shared their experiences with the occult, and it wasn't long before I stumbled on a few threads talking about something eerily similar. They mentioned using Ouija boards and connecting with an entity that called itself Malachi. The stories weren't all the same, but the patterns were there. People describing how the name started appearing in their lives, how they began losing time or feeling watched, how their dreams changed, and how they felt like something was attached to them. One post stood out. A woman wrote that she'd contacted Malachi through a board in college and ignored the signs that followed. She said she eventually had to move across the country to escape it, but even then, she wasn't sure if it had truly let go. She ended her post with a line that chilled me. "Some names aren't meant to be spoken, because once you say them, they know you forever." I read that sentence at least 10 times, heart racing, trying to decide if I should believe it or not. I wanted to dismiss it, to call it internet nonsense, but deep down I knew with a terrible certainty that we had let something in. Things got worse after that. I started hearing footsteps at night in my apartment. Not the creaks of an old building or neighbors moving around. These were distinct, slow footsteps that always stopped right outside my bedroom door. I'd lie there frozen, holding my breath, staring at the gap beneath the door, half expecting to see shadowy feet waiting. Sometimes I'd hear breathing on the other side, soft and ragged, like someone was standing there for hours. And then there was the whisper. Always at the edge of sleep, when I was half awake and too tired to move, I'd hear it say, "Let me in." I tried sleeping with the lights on, with music playing, even staying at a friend's place, but it followed me. It didn't matter where I went. It was there. I started losing time too. I'd look up from my phone, and suddenly it would be 2 hours later, or I'd find myself standing in my kitchen without remembering how I got there. One morning I woke up with dirt under my fingernails and a small scratch on my arm, like I'd been digging in my sleep. I started recording myself at night, thinking maybe I was sleepwalking. What I heard on those recordings still haunts me. On the third night, there was a low humming sound, followed by soft, incoherent whispering. Then, at around 3:17 a.m., I heard my own voice say, "He's almost here." But I don't remember saying that. I don't even remember dreaming that night. I showed it to Emily. She went pale and asked if I'd seen the man in my dreams yet. When I said no, she said, "Then he's still choosing how he'll appear to you." That's when she admitted that she'd started seeing him. A tall, thin man with a crooked smile and hollow eyes who stood at the end of her bed and watched her sleep. She said he never moved, never spoke, he just stared, like he was waiting for something. I asked if she'd tried to get help, and she told me she'd seen a psychic who refused to enter her home after 5 minutes, saying there was something inside that wasn't human. I felt sick. I didn't want to believe it, but how could I deny what was happening? The dreams, the time gaps, the recordings, the feeling of being followed everywhere. I kept searching for explanations, for a way to undo what we'd done, but everything I found said the same thing. Once you open a door, it's not always yours to close. The more I resisted, the stronger it seemed to get. One night, I was walking home from work, headphones in, when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I turned and saw a man standing completely still beneath a streetlight, staring directly at me. I couldn't see his face clearly, just the outline of a long coat and those hollow eyes. I blinked and he was gone. I thought I was losing my mind, but the fear was too real to ignore. That night, I finally tried to destroy the board. I dug it out from under my bed. I hadn't even realized I still had it. Honestly, I thought I left it at Emily's, and I took it outside and tried to burn it, but the wood wouldn't catch. I tried breaking it in half, but it didn't crack. It was like the thing was protected. I threw it into a dumpster and walked away, heart racing, but when I came back to my apartment later, it was sitting on my kitchen table. I hadn't left the door unlocked. I hadn't told anyone. That's when I knew it was no longer about the board. Whatever we'd let in, it wasn't tied to wood and letters, it was tied to us. The name wasn't just a name anymore. It was a presence. It was everywhere. I stopped sleeping. I stopped trusting my own mind. I stopped leaving my apartment except when absolutely necessary. And even then, I felt it in reflections, in crowds, in the silence between thoughts. I could feel it watching me, waiting, like it was part of me now. I finally got a call from Jonah after nearly a month of silence. His voice was shaky. He didn't say hello. He just whispered, "Don't say the name out loud." That's how it spreads. And then the line went dead. I haven't heard from him since. I tried warning Marcus, but he didn't believe me, said he moved on, that nothing ever happened to him. I hope that's true. I really do. But I've learned something important in all of this. Not everything wants to be found. Some things wait for an invitation. And the worst part is, sometimes they don't just come in when you ask, they stay forever. It's strange how fast your mind stops feeling like your own once something else starts creeping into it. Like a shadow moving in behind your thoughts and sitting quietly, watching, learning, waiting, until one day it whispers something that only you should know, something no one else ever could. And you realize whatever this is, it's not just following you anymore, it's inside. That's how it started. Little things at first, like moments where I'd catch myself thinking of something from years ago, something buried so deep I didn't even talk about it to myself. And suddenly, I'd hear a whisper in my own voice say it back to me, like it was reading my memories aloud. The worst one was about my brother, something that happened when we were younger. I accidentally let our dog, and it got hit by a car, but I lied and said it ran away. I never told anyone that, not even him, and I've carried that guilt for over a decade, buried it under everything else, hoping it would stay quiet. But then one night, while brushing my teeth, I heard it, clear as day, not in my head, but from just behind the bathroom door. "You let him die, and you lied." I dropped the toothbrush and just stared at the door, frozen, heart slamming in my chest. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I just stood there, gripping the sink, feeling the cold spread through my whole body like ice water under my skin. It started happening more often after that, specific moments from my past being thrown at me when I was most vulnerable. I'd be walking down the street and hear my mother's voice behind me say, "You always were a disappointment." Or I'd be lying in bed and hear my own voice whisper from inside the closet, "You'll die alone because you deserve to." These weren't random insults. They were the exact things I feared most, the thoughts I pushed deep down and tried to outrun. And now they were being fed back to me, word for word, in voices that sounded too familiar to ignore. One night, I got an email from my own address. Just one word in the subject line: remember. Inside was a photo of me as a kid, sitting on my childhood bed, holding the same stuffed bear I hadn't seen in 20 years. I never uploaded that photo anywhere. I never even scanned it. The only copy was in a box in my parents' attic, a place I hadn't been to in years. I tried deleting the email, but it wouldn't go away. Every time I reopened my inbox, it was there, unread again. I threw my laptop across the room that night, but it didn't matter. The next morning, the photo was my phone's lock screen. I stopped using electronics after that, but it didn't help. The thing didn't need technology to reach me. It was already too close. I started keeping a journal, trying to track when it would speak to me, what triggered it. But when I read the entries back, they were filled with passages I didn't remember writing. Long, rambling thoughts about how he watches through my eyes, and soon we won't be separate anymore. One entry just said, "You are M.E." over and over, 10 pages full of it. I don't remember writing that. One morning, I found a recording on my phone, one I never made. It was just 20 minutes of breathing, slow and deep. And then, near the end, my voice whispering, "I want you to see what I see." I played it once, deleted it, but the next day it was back, and there were 2 new recordings. One of me crying, one of me laughing in a voice that didn't sound like mine. I began losing time again, long stretches where I'd come back to myself, somewhere I didn't remember going. Once I woke up on a bench in the park, hours from home, barefoot, with no phone, no wallet, just a note in my pocket that said, "We're closer now. I went to a therapist." I didn't tell her everything, just that I'd been having episodes, strange thoughts, maybe some hallucinations. She listened, scribbled some notes, and asked me when the entity first introduced itself. I froze. I hadn't mentioned an entity. I asked her to repeat what she said, and she looked confused, said she'd never used that word. I left and never went back. That night, I dreamed of her standing in the corner of my room, mouth open but no sound coming out, eyes wide and pleading, like she was trying to warn me. The next day, I called the clinic to see if she was available, and they told me no one by that name had ever worked there. I couldn't trust my mind anymore. Couldn't trust anything around me. I called Emily again, desperate, but she didn't answer. Marcus had gone completely off the grid, deleted social media, changed his number. No one knew where he was. Jonah, the last I heard, had checked himself into some kind of retreat center, deep in the mountains. No phones, no contact. I was alone with it now, and it wanted me to know that. I'd see my reflection moving when I didn't, smiling when I wasn't, blinking at the wrong times. Once, I watched it mouth something slowly, over and over, like it was trying to teach me the words. I wrote them down, phonetically nonsense sounds, or so I thought, until I searched one of the phrases and found it matched an old Sumerian ritual for inviting union. I didn't even know what Sumerian was before that. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My skin got pale. I lost weight, and the people I did see started avoiding me, like they could sense something was off. I found bruises on my arms shaped like handprints, and once I woke up with the word "his" carved shallowly into my thigh. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? One night, I saw him fully for the first time. I'd woken up at 3:17 a.m., like always, and the lights were flickering. I turned over, and there he was, standing at the foot of my bed. Tall, thin, head slightly tilted, eyes completely black like polished stone. His mouth stretched too wide, like it had been cut open at the sides. He didn't move, just stared. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My voice was gone. My whole body was frozen, like I was underwater. And then he spoke, not with his mouth, but inside my head. I know what you hide. I know what you fear. I am the part of you you never wanted to meet. And then, just like that, he was gone. I cried all night, not because I saw a monster, but because some part of me believed him. I knew he wasn't just something I'd summoned. He was something that had always been waiting for the right crack to slip through. The Ouija board didn't create him, it invited him. And now he was learning everything about me, wearing me like a coat, practicing. It wasn't about haunting. It was about taking. Bit by bit, memory by memory, he was becoming me. And I was disappearing. Possession doesn't happen all at once. No one wakes up one day and suddenly finds they're gone. It's slower, like being slowly pulled underwater, inch by inch, while you're still breathing, still blinking, still thinking you're in control, until you realize your hands don't feel like yours anymore. Your voice slips sometimes, and the thoughts in your head aren't all yours either. That's what it felt like. Not a dramatic takeover, but more like a fading, like I was still here, but less of me remained each day. It started with small things, words slipping out of my mouth that I didn't plan to say, strange pauses in conversations where my mind would go blank and something else seemed to fill in for me. I'd laugh at things that weren't funny. I'd answer questions I didn't hear. I once caught myself staring at a stranger in the grocery store, smiling, but I wasn't actually aware of doing it until they walked away quickly, looking disturbed. I don't even remember what I was thinking. The sleepwalking got worse, if you could even call it that anymore. I'd wake up standing in the living room, sometimes holding something sharp, a pair of scissors, a broken piece of glass, even a kitchen knife. Once, just standing there, barefoot, shaking, with no memory of how I got there or what I was doing. One night, I found myself digging through the dirt in the corner of my bedroom. There was no reason for me to do that. I don't even remember starting. But the worst was when I began seeing myself from outside my body. I know that sounds insane, but it's real. I'd have moments, sometimes just a few seconds long, where I'd feel like I was looking at myself from a corner of the ceiling, like I wasn't fully inside anymore, like something else was piloting me and I was just watching. The first time it happened, I dropped a plate in the kitchen and didn't react at all, just stood there, staring down at it. I could feel my own eyes blink, but not from the inside, from the outside. And then I snapped back, heart pounding, and felt this wave of nausea that knocked me straight to the floor. I called Emily again, hoping she could relate, hoping she'd picked up the pieces I couldn't, but her number had been disconnected. I checked her social media, gone. No trace. Not even old posts, like she'd never existed. I tried calling Marcus through one of his old friends, and he finally called me back late one night, whispering like someone was listening. He sounded broken, not scared, not paranoid, just empty. He said, "It wants to become you, not kill you, not scare you, replace you." I asked him what he meant, and he just said, "He's wearing my face already. I see him in the mirror, and I think my mom believes it's me." That's when he hung up. I haven't heard from him since. I tried burning sage, salt circles, prayers, meditation, even staying up all night, repeating old protective chants I found online, but nothing worked. The more I tried to push it away, the stronger it felt. I could feel him inside me like a second heartbeat. I started talking to myself, or at least, I thought I was talking to myself, until I realized I was answering questions I hadn't asked. My voice started sounding wrong, sometimes deeper, slower, like someone else was learning how to speak through me. My eyes looked different in photos, like there was something behind them, watching, smiling when I wasn't. I kept hearing this phrase over and over, "You're almost ready." I don't know what it meant at first. I thought maybe it meant I was going to die, or that he was going to fully take me over. But it was worse than that. One day, I was walking down my hallway and stopped in front of the mirror without meaning to. I looked into my reflection and watched it blink before I did. Then it smiled slow, stretched, unnatural, and mouthed the words, "Almost ready." I smashed the mirror instantly, heart racing, chest tight, but even as the glass shattered, the smile stayed on every shard. I started covering mirrors after that. I stopped sleeping in my bed and started sleeping on the couch with the lights on, TV playing old reruns, anything to drown out the silence. But the silence always found me. One night, I heard scratching behind the walls, like nails dragging slowly. Then the laughter started low, raspy, like someone was trying to remember how to laugh. I pressed my hands over my ears and whispered no over and over, but it just got louder. And then I heard my own voice say, "Let me take over. You're tired." And the thing is, I was. I was so tired. Tired of being scared, tired of fighting, tired of trying to prove to myself that I was still in control. I didn't want to give up, but I could feel pieces of me slipping, memories becoming foggy, feelings getting dulled. It was like he was cutting the strings one by one. I tried leaving my apartment, staying in hotels, crashing with relatives. No matter where I went, he followed. I'd see him in the corner of the room, always out of focus. I'd hear him breathing behind the shower curtain. Once, while staying at a cheap motel, I woke up in the parking lot, face scratched, shirt soaked in sweat, with a sticky note on my chest that said, "You slept well." I started recording myself again, but this time it wasn't just breathing or whispers. It was me speaking in a language I didn't understand, guttural, choking words that sounded ancient. In one video, I smiled straight into the camera and said, "He lives here now." I don't remember saying it. I don't remember smiling like that. I stopped recording after that. There was no point. I already knew. I saw a priest, one of the last things I tried before giving up. I didn't tell him everything, just said I felt off, like I had something attached to me. He looked me dead in the eyes and asked, "Did you invite it?" And I just started crying. I didn't even answer. He gave me holy water, prayed over me, but before I left, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You need to understand, not every door can be closed by the one who opened it." I thanked him and left, feeling more alone than ever. That night, I dreamed of the hallway again. The same one from months ago, the flickering lights, the rotting wood, the door at the end. But this time, the door was open. Inside, it was pitch black, but I could hear something breathing inside. I stepped toward it, unable to stop myself, and just before I crossed the threshold, I heard my own voice whisper, "Come in." And I did. When I woke up, I felt different. Not scared calm, too calm. Like I had finally stopped fighting. My reflection was still covered, but I caught a glimpse in the dark window later that night. I wasn't smiling, but the reflection was, and I understood then what possession really meant. It wasn't about controlling the body, it was about breaking the soul. About wearing someone down so slowly that when the final moment came, they didn't resist. They welcomed it. They let go. They made space. I was almost there, almost ready. And the worst part was, I didn't know if I wanted to stop it anymore. It's been almost 5 years since the night we messed with that damn OUIJA board. And yet, no matter how far I move, no matter how many times I change my number or try to restart my life, I still feel him watching me. At first, I thought time would blur the edges, maybe even make me believe it was all in my head. A group hallucination, some overactive imagination from too many horror stories. But no, it's real, every part of it. And sometimes I think writing this down might help me cope, like maybe putting it out into the world would somehow release me, or warn someone before they do something stupid like I did. I live alone now. out in a cabin near the hills where there's no reception, no neighbors, and just enough space between me and the rest of the world to feel safe. I don't keep electronics beyond this old laptop, and even that I only turn on to write entries like this, though I never remember starting them. I'll find drafts saved under weird names, some in languages I don't speak, others just a repeated phrase typed over and over again. You invited me. The same phrase that used to show up in my dreams, on my mirror, carved lightly into the wood of my desk, even when I'd sand it down and paint over it. I used to be someone else, you know. I used to have friends, family, dreams. Now I live off-grid, avoiding people because I don't trust myself around them anymore. There have been gaps in my memory I can't explain, like waking up with mud on my shoes and no clue where I've been, or finding scratches under my bed as if something was clawing from underneath deep. Frenzied marks like someone was trapped down there. There's a mirror in the hallway that I've covered up because sometimes, late at night, I'll walk past and catch a glimpse not of me, but of someone standing behind me, tall, black-eyed, grinning. When I turn around, nothing. Just air, but the reflection stays a second longer before fading. I've had people come by, delivery guys, hikers, one time a wildlife ranger checking the area, and they all say the same thing. Man, your place gives me the creeps. One even said, it feels like something's staring through me. I don't get visitors much anymore, probably for the best. I talk to myself out loud now, not in the usual mumbling way, but full conversations, arguments even. And I'll catch myself saying things I don't remember thinking, like threats or names I shouldn't know. Last month, I woke up to find a letter on my pillow, sealed in wax. I swear to God, I never wrote it, but it was in my handwriting, and the letter inside said, "He's closer now. You shouldn't have let him in. Neither should the next." No signature. Just that damn name. The same name from the board. I burned it in the fireplace, but the next morning, the ashes were gone, and the letter was back on my desk, this time opened. I started hearing a low humming at night, like a song I almost remember from childhood, but twisted, warped. Sometimes it comes from the walls, sometimes from my own mouth. There are nights I wake up mid-sentence, speaking in a voice that isn't mine, deeper, raspier. I've tried recording it, but the files always get corrupted or just vanish. I don't sleep much anymore. Not because of fear, not even because of nightmares. It's because sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see through his eyes. I know that sounds insane, but it's real. I see places I've never been to, faces I don't recognize. I once saw a little boy crying in a dark attic, chained to something, and I woke up with bruises on my wrists. Another time, I saw a woman in a hospital bed, hooked to machines, eyes wide open like she'd seen something terrifying. And the next day on the local paper, someone matching that exact description was listed in an obituary. I don't think he's just with me anymore. I think he's using me, borrowing me, testing things through me. I've contacted a few people exorcists, mediums, spiritualists, but most hang up or block me after I say his name. One even begged me never to speak to them again. Said something about a marked soul and uninvited doors. A priest I found online agreed to come, but when he arrived, he took one step inside and immediately vomited on the floor. He said the air felt wrong, like it was bending. He left without even trying anything. I don't blame him. I wouldn't stay here either if I had a choice. But where would I even go? I feel like he's under my skin now, inside my thoughts. When I look in the mirror, sometimes my mouth doesn't move when I speak. I caught a video once accidentally from my laptop webcam. I don't remember turning it on. In it, I sat perfectly still for 4 hours, staring into the lens, not blinking, not moving, not me. At the very end, I smiled. Not the way I smile. A slow, stretched, terrifying grin that doesn't reach the eyes. I deleted it. Or I think I did. Sometimes I still hear it playing from the hard drive at night, even though the laptop's off. I've accepted that he's a part of me now. Or maybe I'm a part of him. I don't know. I don't even know what I means anymore. I try to write these things down just to anchor myself, to feel real again, even if just for a moment. But lately, I've been finding entries I never wrote, diary pages describing events I haven't lived yet. One of them described this very entry, word for word, right down to this sentence. So if you're reading this, if somehow this got out into the world, I'm begging you, do not try to find the board. Do not speak the name. Do not test the boundaries of the world you think you understand. Because once you open that door, even just a little, he doesn't knock. He walks in, and sometimes he never leaves. If you feel something watching you right now, don't look. Don't check the window. Don't check behind you. It only encourages him. Just pretend you never read this. Delete it. Burn it. Do not pass it on. And for the love of everything good, if you ever hear a knock at 3:17 a.m. followed by your voice whispering your name from the other side of the door, do not open it.